Is my boyfriend of 5 months cheating on me? Hey guys, I in just a few days think my BF is probably cheating. I don't know where to start as there are red flags galore. To preface this, yes, there is an age difference which I have been completely okay with since we met and started dating. It's been 5 months in the scheme of things, which I know isn't very long. I've dated and had relationships with men my age, and well, the maturity of an older man is what brought me to meet Sean. We'll call him Sean. First major red flag that he was honest about: he served almost 40 years in prison for a terrible crime he committed as an orphan/foster kid. The kind where someone was unalived. His sentence was overturned and he was released and has been out in the real world for about 2 years now. Believe me, I never thought I would be someone to date an ex-con or anyone who has ever been incarcerated. I am not one who would have ever sought out a pen pal or any such notion with someone in prison. His passion for life and exploring is unparalleled, and in almost everything he is making up for lost time. He was honest with me about his past on our first date and gave me all of the information needed to read up about him, as he and his past crime are highly Googleable, as he put it. I was in an all-time low at the time and decided that I didn't care too much about my own safety and that whatever would happen would happen. The relationship surprisingly thus far has been relatively healthy. I had been on a weight loss journey prior to meeting Sean, and he is very physically active, which he made clear was a necessity for any partner of his. I rose to the occasion. I've still been actively losing weight even though I am still a big girl. I go hiking with him, we practice yoga, I quit all of my vices, smoking weed, nicotine, copious ridiculous amounts of caffeine, getting my finances in better shape so that I can be a better and more responsible partner, all in an attempt to grow with him. From the beginning of our relationship he made it clear that he had options as far as partners and had brought it up pretty regularly to start. It didn't bother me at the time, as I realized that in many ways he was kind of like a teenage boy learning and experiencing things for the first time since he was 18, new to relationships really other than the last year or so in his newfound freedom, and having somehow been married to a woman and divorced while he was in prison. To start, I told him that okay, that was great, but that he needed to understand that I had options too. I may be a bigger lass, but damn do I have a face and a soul that I am constantly working on improving. I left it at that. Also, that monogamy is important to me, so if he still felt the need to go experience, flirting, dating other women, that I totally understood since he is new to the outside world, but that I wouldn't be a part of that. I would excuse myself and it was fine. We've been together now 5 months. I'm almost the healthiest I've ever been, and I'm the smallest weight I have been in years. I have learned, however, that he has some narcissistic and manipulative tendencies, which I imagine was a learned coping mechanism to living in maximum security prison for as long as he had been. He lies by omission, he gaslights me, and completely disconnects when I get upset and try to explain to him why I am upset. He'll just kind of say life is too short to be unhappy with anything, which to a degree I understand, because to him life is now great and wonderful and full of possibilities now that he isn't behind bars. For example, he will do something that is upsetting to me in the relationship, I'll go to express my upset so that we can talk about it and figure out how to move forward, and instead he will cut me off with the life is too short line or something similar, and then I won't hear from him for days. He'll kind of come back because admittedly I have a ruthless cut-off game 2 days later when he starts to get worried that he won't hear from me. This has happened many times already. He works remotely with a non-profit and sometimes has to travel to the headquarters an hour away. Early on in our relationship I found out that when he went to the city for work and had to be there for a couple of days that he wasn't getting a hotel, he was staying with an ex-girlfriend. I had a really light non-emotion charged conversation with him about how that wasn't exactly appropriate, especially since he didn't feel the need to disclose any of the information to me or honor our relationship beforehand. I had to ask after the fact. He said he understood and that he wouldn't be staying alone with his ex anymore going forward. Fast forward, the last couple of months have been hard. I struggle with anxiety and depression and thought it would be a good idea to go off medications. He was supportive, as I think with his age bracket/generation he doesn't really believe too much in mental illness, and to him there is no reason to be depressed. We split for a little while and he came back. I ended up finding him on an adult website. I asked him point blank if he had anything to tell me and he told me he didn't. I sent him screenshots of his profile and went silent. He came around a few days later letting me know that he deleted the profile and that he realized he wasn't being a good friend and would do better because he was learning to be a person again after his incarceration. While he was in prison, he won a lawsuit against the state in regard to the treatment of foster care youths and had bought a ranch across the state. We went on a trip across the state last weekend to discuss the sale of his property with some buyers who, based on the contract he showed me I am in banking, they were clearly taking advantage of him. I had taken some time off work because I was back on medications to stabilize my anxiety and had been having anxiety attacks every day. Sharp stabbing pain in my chest, my left arm, rapid heartbeat, overstimulation. I have admittedly been to the emergency room multiple times in the last few weeks, certain I was having a heart attack. So back to the road trip across the state. It had been pleasant enough other than really bad bumper-to-bumper traffic for at least 5 hours of it, exacerbated by driving straight towards a wildfire on the eastern side of the state. Having lived in California and evacuating from wildfires multiple times, they scare the shit out of me and make my anxiety worse. More than halfway through the trip he tells me that we aren't staying in a hotel, even though I was to be my best bank branch manager self to speak to the buyers on the contract, that he brought my sleeping bag and that we would just be finding a random place to sleep. I started crying a little bit because it really felt like, with everything I had been through going back and forth to the ER and the amount of stress that I had been dealing with, that a hotel room would be the obvious choice. Instead, I was going to be sleeping in a sleeping bag, somewhere, not even a tent. Also, let me be clear, he is not a sugar daddy. I buy him things, we split costs, I do whatever I can to make the reasons I am with him obvious. I am not dead weight, if that makes sense. He after a time realized how upset I was. It had been a long road trip, detours from the wildfire and me having consistent anxiety pains through my body the entire time. He finally asked me to see about finding a hotel room at about 9 o'clock at night, and as it turns out, all of the hotel rooms were full from people being evacuated from the wildfires. He found a park, pulled out my sleeping bag and wanted me to sleep at a picnic table. I put my head down at one point in the dark, upset with being exposed to the elements when I've been feeling so terribly, and when I looked up 10 minutes later he had left me there. Other cars had pulled up and could see me head down at the park table. He had gone back to his car out of view of where I was and was fiddling with his phone. It got worse. I know that when I get emotional that I can be hard to calm down. We had fought the last part of trip ever since he told me that I would be sleeping outside before the business meeting he had brought me there for. He told me that I was a great burden to him and that after seeing me in the upset state I was in, that he didn't even want anything to do with me. So I told him that I agreed and that after that trip was over I didn't want to see him again. We ended up sleeping in his tiny sports car that night at a park. Now, I am not a princess or bougie. I've been homeless, I've slept in my car, I've slept in parks. It isn't that I am unable to adapt. I got ready in the park bathroom the next morning, trying to look as business presentable as I could for the meeting in regards to his property early the next morning. Meeting was as I expected. He was being had by the buyers because he didn't know anything about market rates when he signed the contract, neither here nor there, just context I guess. The ride home I was disconnected, trying not to cry about how hurt I was that he called me a burden. He never apologized, but his demeanor changed and he was trying to be loving. I on the other hand felt like I was emotionally gutted from the night before and how he yelled at me. I just could barely keep the tears in and did my best to be as neutral as I could be on the hours-long trip back across the state. Towards the end he yelled at me for not getting him directions in time to make a turn onto the highway. I cried again, already emotionally exhausted, but tried to keep my tears to a minimum because I was stuck with him in the car for hours without any other way home. We got back and communication shut down again for days. I ended up apologizing to him because I knew I was having problems with my anxiety and accused that I didn't exactly make the trip fun due to my mental turbulence. A few days later he told me that he would be spending a couple of days in the city for work, which was fine. After he left though, it dawned on me that we didn't stay in a hotel because he didn't have the budget for it, even though I would have gladly helped pay for a safe warm place to sleep, so where was he going to be staying when he went in the city? He had already left when I asked him. He had obviously had no problem omitting it, but then he told me that he was going to be staying with a woman named Margaret, a friend whom I had never heard about. He said that she had a long-time partner but that he would not be present. I found her on his Facebook, single, younger than him, active. He shut down communication with me when I told him that it was pretty inappropriate, especially since he wasn't going to tell me until I asked. He said his only other options were to sleep outside or in his car. He did neither of those things. He later sent me a picture of his friend at dinner with him to, I guess, placate me, but it honestly felt like he sent me a picture of him on a date with another woman. He called me to tell me that he just told her all about me and put me on speakerphone as I was telling him that if he wasn't willing to sleep in his car that night, especially since days before he told me what a burden I was over our sleeping arrangements. Anyway, again he came home from the city and assured me of only their friendship and how he didn't like jealousy. Here we are the following week. He stayed the night last night or so. I thought I started a new medication for my anxiety depression and it puts me into a deep sleep. Deep sleep. I was having nightmares and actually was startled awake at 1 a.m. And he was gone. I called out for him, then went downstairs, front door unlocked and his car was gone. I had never even felt him leave. I called him, he said he couldn't sleep and since he was going to be in the city again the next couple of days, that he wanted to beat the morning traffic I used to make the same commute, and as long as you leave at 5 or 6 a.m. you beat the traffic and it's about an hour and a half commute. He said he was at a park and was going to sleep. I haven't heard from him at all. I know this is a lot of information and I apologize if it's disjointed and hard to read. I just want some outside context here. Is it me? Am I being ridiculous? Any advice or insights are greatly appreciated. Comment. I'd give you an award if I had one. I'm sorry, but to be told about a 40-year prison sentence involving a murder on the first date, I would have grabbed my purse and excused myself to the ladies' room and left out the window. This woman has zero self-respect. Saddest thing I've read in a while. This has to be someone's writing assignment for college LMFAO. Props to anyone who makes it through the whole thing. This guy's a complete nightmare. You're going to find out he's lying about a lot more than this. He's not a man, he's a little boy, and he's purposely preying on vulnerable people, which you alluded to about yourself. Nobody who's been in prison for 40 years has lots of options with anyone of quality. It's just not possible. You need to run far, far away. Girl, just know. He's cheating, you deserve better and there is better out there. Maybe just focus on yourself and your health before getting into another relationship. Either way, no man is worth this much emotional turmoil and upset. He has no respect for you.